Beautiful. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Ring. All right, today we've got some special guests. We've got Coach Kane Bradley. We've got the very special Sempai Fleur, who's also our resident nurse, and she's a good distance away from me, which is always a really good start. And returning again from last week, we've got Sempai Michelle. So welcome, guys. Very good. All right, so last week we were talking about the impact of the recent lockdown on mental health, which is why we've got you two girls here today, being that you're both relative experts in that area. And we've also got Coach Kane here because he's got some really good coping strategies and techniques, which we're going to discuss a little bit sooner. So just to get the ball rolling, tell us a little bit about yourself. Love or Fleur? Or how do I call her on camera? We'll call her Fleur today.
All right. So I am a mental health nurse. So you could probably say I'm at the forefront of the real problem with mental health at the moment. I work at Casey Hospital in the inpatient unit. So, and I've been doing that for 3 years, coming up to 4 years.
Yeah. How are things before? I mean, I know that we've sort of discussed things at home a little bit, but the impact of things at the way they were before the first lockdown, things were a little bit quieter around where you work. I think everyone was just sort of a bit afraid to leave their homes. This time around, though, there's been a bit of a spike.
Yeah, so I think we're starting to really see the effects of probably from the start of the pandemic to now, really starting to see the effect that it's had on people's mental health. And I think we're starting to get a lot more people that normally wouldn't have any contact with mental health services starting to reach out and needing help and support and not coping with what's going on. So that we're starting to see a lot more presentations of people that normally would not need mental health services at all.
What would you put down to the main contributor of that, do you think?
I think...
Would it be financial, or would it just be because the effect of isolation, perhaps?
Yeah, isolation, definitely financial stress for people, that's a big one. And the isolation and the worry, that people are worried, and the unknown of how this is going to end and when the end is going to happen. I think that's what people are stressing or finding difficult to cope with the most is, how does this end? What does the future look like for people? And I think, just normal everyday people like ourselves are just requiring support and not coping at home. And also too, the problems that people had before, when you're isolated and you can't go out and you can't escape the problems that are in your home, they're the issues that people are having the most trouble with. That they're stuck with their problems, they can't escape them, so and they don't know how to cope with it. Okay,
I think it's sort of fair to say too. I mean, most of us that are watching this have got a relatively sort of stable home life. If I was to be so bold to say, I know that our home life is very stable. Home is usually very quiet, and just the difference now being in a lockdown, even though you're in a nice comfortable environment, it's still really stressful to know that you can't just go to the cafe and you can't just jump on your motorbike and go for a ride in the hills anymore. Just those little liberties being taken away, I guess, are what's creating a lot of the stress.
I think too that being stuck in your own head is...
Sorry, we've got noisy neighbours.
I think, being stuck in your home, in your own thoughts, in your own head, and if you don't normally have the coping skills and the tools that some of us have to be able to deal with mental health and stress, that is difficult.
Okay.
But if you've got good relationships around you and good support, whether it be in your home or you can pick up the phone and talk to someone, people don't have those before this. They're not going to find them now.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hard part for a lot of people.
I suppose it's all well and good to say, pick up the phone and call a mate, but if you weren't doing that before all this happened, it's hard to imagine that someone would find the courage, really, to be able to feel that they can reach out.
Yeah.
There's still that stigma attached to mental health.
Absolutely.
Especially for men. I think women are really good at vocalising what's going on, but as blokes, we struggle a little bit. And like you just mentioned, if you didn't have the resources and the ability to do it post-COVID, you're really going to struggle now. It's a tough situation.
Yeah, we often, there is a big demographic, not so much a big, the demographic that's quite large of middle-aged men, especially, like in your...
The highest risk category
they are.
For depression and suicide.
Absolutely, and they're not normally a group of men that will ask for help. They're very proud and yep, she'll be right kind of attitude, and the cracks start to happen. They might have lost their job right now, their relationships might be breaking down, and they're not coping, and you don't know that they're not coping until they don't cope and they do things, they do drastic things, and they don't reach out for help. So it really is, and we've got a lot of that age group in our community here at the dojo. And I guess, bringing it back to the dojo, making sure that, the dads and the husbands and brothers and what out there listening now know that it only takes one phone call to somebody that you trust, and hopefully that's, that we've got someone in our community that you can reach out to. It just has to be one person that you can reach out to say, look, I'm not coping, and just have a chat about what's going on. And that one conversation can be the difference between somebody being okay and them not being okay.
Absolutely, yes.
So it's important to know that, one person is all you need to talk to sometimes to make things a bit better.
I think it's a fair point to say that us being a very, very tight-knit group here at SEMA, all it takes really, as you're saying, to talk to one person. So, I'd say it'd be a fair challenge to put it out to all of our members, male and female, to make one phone call today, or make one phone call tomorrow to somebody.
Or text message. Sometimes you don't want to talk. Sometimes just being able to just type it is all the courage that somebody has, is just to be able to type a message rather than actually speak to somebody. Sometimes that's too much. So, send a text.
It's funny, quite often I'll get, as you well know, I'll get a message from Sensei Tony, and all it is welfare check.
Yeah, he's good.
That's all it says, welfare check. He genuinely wants
just
to know.
Just check in,
just to check in, just to make sure that everything's okay, there's no dramas going on. Something might have unfolded throughout the week, which for somebody could be a tipping point, but he's always onto that, and it just makes me think maybe I need to do that for him a little bit more often too, rather than just sending silly messages. But I always get that reminder. Growing up in a house full of girls myself, I can't escape that. Sit down and talk about things, and things don't go on for long. If I'm in a mood, there's a reason why, and you're a good one to.
You call them out on it?
I'm a double-edged sword.
Can't get away with anything. And Ruby's exactly the same. Ruby's picked up the same traits. She'll always ask, and she'll want to sit down, except when it's about her, of course. And she'll want to sit down and talk about it. She's picked it up from you. I know that, Michelle, you're the same too, because you've got young Stella at home. Of course, you've got Marty and Nick, but you've also got your stepkids as well. So Ella, is it?
Yeah,
and
Ruby.
You've got Ella and Ruby. So it's a female-dominated environment.
It is. Yeah.
How does Nick cope?
He's good. when he's stressed, he deals with it by withdrawing.
Yes.
Thinks about it.
You can see it's stressed straight away.
Which I am a talker. Same. If something's wrong, I'll be like, "What's going on? Let's talk about it now."
Yeah.
So there's been the navigating that difference in the dynamic where he needs that space to kind of, think through what's going on, and then we'll talk about it. And whereas I'm the opposite, I'm like, we need to talk about this now. But everyone has their own coping strategies. And as I was listening to Fleur, I was thinking, there's a lot of people, like, we consciously talk about how we manage our stress and anxieties and all that kind of thing. But a lot of people have their own ways of coping that are very unconscious. Like, they don't realise that they're doing things in order to manage their stresses. So things like going to the gym or coming to train, or other things that we do in our daily lives that are coping mechanisms
we just can't do now,
are taken away. And if they were completely unconscious of the ways that those things helped them with their mental health, then they'd be feeling that impact more of not having those things now, because it's not a conscious thing that they were doing. So, we've got to feel for a lot of people who've just had those taken away.
Yeah, it's just reminded me when we have a patient come in and has an admission at work, often at the start of their admission, and it's probably more beneficial towards the end of their admission, we do what we call a safety plan. And in essence, that is when somebody's well, or when, and this goes for all of us doing our own sort of safety plan, is when things are going good for you. It's always, the safety plan is working out what is something that is triggering you, what is affecting your mental health, what are the things that happen that make you spiral downwards, recognising what they are, what those triggers are, and also then with the safety plan working out what actually helps you. So what are the things that are good for you and are going to help you when things aren't going well, and then what are the things that you can do, and what are the warning signs, what can you recognise in your behaviour or in your life that happens to let you know, listen, something's not quite right, I need to implement all the things that I know are going to help me. So that's what essentially what you're talking about is, the things that you unconsciously do that, make you feel good. When things are good, it's kind of like a good idea to have an idea of, this helps me, this doesn't help me, and we can all kind of have our own little bit of a safety plan, especially at the moment, knowing that, you can't physically come to training, but, getting on and doing the classes and doing the things that we're posting on YouTube, they're not so much good for your physical health, but they're also good for your mental health. And it's not just about, doing it for the sake of doing it. It's keeping your mind healthy throughout this. So when this is over, because it will be over at some point, is being able to get back into things, into a routine a lot faster than if you just let everything go and doom and gloom and, it's just doomsday, then that's so much harder to recover from. So I guess, having our own little safety plans is a good idea.
I think too, for partners and for friends, it's a good thing to take note of is what people normally do when they've got their normal life stresses. Like Nick might go and play his guitar, or for me, I'd come down here and hit the gym, or I'd go for a ride. And I think if you're starting to see things in your friends and your partners that they are still able to do, but they're starting to withdraw from, then they're the signs to look for, perhaps that things aren't right.
Yeah.
That there is a little bit more there to look for.
Yeah.
I know, because I play guitar as well, and for many years there, all I ever did was play. And I remember there was one point where things just weren't quite right, so I stopped playing altogether. And that was the first sign for Fleur. She was like, "Well, what's wrong? Why don't you go and play?"
Yeah.
And then that sort of helped her to recognise some signs in me too. Now, coming from a male-dominated household, because we've got King Bradley and we've got the Bradley boys, all in the one place.
Yeah.
How do you guys cope, and how do you instigate conversations at home?
I just use a mindfulness-based approach.
Yeah.
So big just on watching the boys' body language, how they carry themselves, and
How they treat each other.
how they treat each other.
Yeah.
Because they're so close in age, you got to give them some leeway.
Yeah.
But they've coped remarkably well through this COVID situation, and they've been very fortunate. They've been able to come down here and do a lot of online stuff as well, and we do things like walking to the dojo.
Yep.
Just to break up their day, walking the dog. We walk the dog every evening together.
It's just a simple thing too,
It is,
isn't it?
yeah.
Just going for a walk around the corner, having a look at other people's front yards. If you need some garden ideas.
No, my dog didn't make that mess. It was someone else's dog. Quickly scurry away. But just simple things like that. Just engaging with them. Giving your presence to someone is a gift.
Yeah.
And there's a difference, like when you speak to someone and actually being present, you can feel it as a human when someone is actually listening to you. So if you actually tune in and listen, that's when you pick up on the subtleties and what's really going on in someone. And for anyone else that would like to sort of gauge where they're at, I think the breath is really important. So if you ever, I've said this, you guys would have heard me say this a lot, but for anybody else that hasn't, if you ever catch yourself breathing short, sharp breaths where it feels like it's up in your chest, that's fight or flight response. And that's normal in the situation we're in at the moment because everyone's so stressed out. So what you can do to switch that fight or flight response off, come back to rest and digest, is big, deep, smooth, big, long, drawn-out breaths, and that'll switch your nervous system back over to a nice rest and digest response, and then you can start to get some clarity to your thoughts. Otherwise, you just end up like a hamster on a wheel, just going round and round. It just gets worse. And then to try and calm the nervous system, you might turn to alcohol, which is fine. But what does alcohol do? It shuts down your prefrontal lobe, so then you can't concentrate and think properly. And so it's all about, I think, having a toolbox as well. What have you got in your toolbox to deal with stress and to deal with the situation? So just accumulating tools.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because it's not always up to the people around us to pick up on these things and then to action it. You've got people who A, can't reach out to somebody for whatever personal reason, or B, don't have anybody to reach out to, whether they're obviously in isolation, but they may be a little bit further away than most. But you're right, to see something in yourself, and it's as simple as taking a few deep breaths. Because as soon as you do that, you got me onto this a few years back, and Fleur's a big one for it as well. If I'm upset about something, she'll always say, just stop, take a couple of deep breaths, and as soon as you do, those frantic thoughts stop. That fast-paced frantic thought actually slows down. And it's funny how in tune your body is. And we say this in martial arts all the time, that we control our breath all the time, especially when we're sparring. You can't take shallow breaths when you're sparring because that's frantic thought, frantic movement. So we relax more. And as soon as you do that, you relax.
You have to shift your focus to tell yourself to take a deep breath. So you stop focusing on what it is that is making you feel that way. You have to change your focus into your breath, and then that gives you that brief moment, a few moments, just to slow everything down and go, okay, now I can kind of get some clarity and think about, what you can do to help yourself.
And now for the massive shameless plug. Kane here does an amazing yoga class here at the club, of course. But at the moment you switch things to online. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and perhaps what times that we can expect to catch online? And I know you've just launched a new website too.
Yes, I have. So I'm working towards having a bigger online presence, and so that'll be posted on the Facebook page for Casey Link Martial Arts, and also my own website that's mostly up and running.
So that is wearemindfulmovement.com. Wearemindfulmovement.com.
Yeah, so it's all coming together slowly. That's how I seem to do everything. But look, a step forward is better than two steps back.
Right.
So,
Exactly right. And when you've got those little tiny legs, mate.
That's my other excuse. That's it. Thanks, mate. Thanks. That's it.
But that being said, it's funny. Tony's going to hate me for this. Your legs are still longer than Tony's.
Yes. I got someone covered.
All right, so wearemindfulmovement.com. Now, I know that you've been doing a lot of online stuff through our page as well, which has been amazing. But I think what we'll do is we'll start to share whenever you do something on your page.
Just
Because it's just those few moments. And the thing is, the yoga that you do too, again, it comes back to that breath and mindfulness rather than, I mean, the physicality of it's still good, but it's tailorable. I mean, as you know, I've just had both my hips replaced, and I did a yoga session with you just before lockdown. So beneficial, more so for here than it was for my body. Sure, my body got moving, but it wasn't one of those things where my arms were sore and my back was aching and everything else. When I finished, like I'd normally expect with exercise, it was just good just to slow things down.
Nervous system. It's like a massage for your nervous system.
And being that my mind, it was so blocked with all the recovery processes and what I can't do and what my illusions of what I think that I should be physically, was just to slow it down, to say nothing else matters right now, just this space here for me. And I think that's a really important part about it.
I think that slowing down and grounding is really important because particularly now, like we're all in kind of like a pressure cooker. You know, usually like if you had an argument with your partner, you know, you'd go to work that day and by the time you see each other, you've both cooled down and you can work through it. But we don't have that chance for energy to dissipate. It's just like you're sitting in that space. And unless you're doing things like that and slowing down and grounding yourself and kind of reflecting on what's going on, that can just get worse and worse and worse. So I think that is really important when you're talking about just kind of being present and just slowing down. Being more mindful. Nature
is in itself has a profound effect on how you feel and how you interact. Just go for a 10-minute walk.
And like days like yesterday, the sun was out. Like a bit of vitamin D. I mean, and it sounds cliche, but it's simple. But it does, if you just give yourself the opportunity to do things that are simple, like getting out in the sun for 15 minutes is all you need, a bit of vitamin D, it just makes you feel better.
It's a little ironic too that this is the winter of the lockdown where we've all got to stay home.
And it's the best winter.
It's the best winter we've ever had. It is. It's incredible out there. Like today, such a beautiful day. You know, and for the sun to be shining, it's nice and cool, so you can get out and enjoy a brisk walk without getting a sweat up or anything else like that. Still wear nice, comfortable clothing, so you can still rug up. It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing.
And also too, I mean, this can be a positive for families and relationships where you're used to being so busy all the time and got to go do this, got to go do that you don't slow down, and we're forced to slow down. That, you know, Ruby and you and I and the dog went for a walk. Like I couldn't tell you the last time we all did that together and it was sunny and it was lovely and we all just
felt good.
Just walking, chatting about and having those opportunities to do just simple things like a family walk.
And there was no conversation about doom and gloom about what's going on, or you know, the pressures of trying to keep this place open and you know, and your stress at work and Ruby's stressing with school. There was none of that. It was just getting out, having fun, watching that dog being an absolute moron.
He would have loved it.
Well, there are a lot of silver linings to this situation as well, and I think that, you know, keeping away from the media is a huge one. I think is important because there's so much negativity around.
Bad news sells, doesn't it? Unfortunately.
Just shifting focus to find those silver linings. So we actually at home had started like a gratitude journal. So every night before we went to bed, would write 3 things in there. So I think something simple like that, which doesn't take very long, to just sit down and write down 3 things that you're grateful for that day or that you enjoyed about that day, can really help shift your focus as well. Because I found myself when I was doing that, during the day, I'd be looking for things and going, oh, I can write that in my journal. So I was focusing more on the positives. And I think something like that now would be a really good...
I think that's a great idea.
Really simple thing.
Good. Absolutely. And the thing is that you don't have to be good at it. You know, it could be something of what are you grateful for today? Well, I'm grateful for my wife, I'm grateful for my daughter. What am I grateful for tomorrow? Well, it could be the same thing. And then the more often you enter into that journal, then you know you can explore your options a little bit more. I think
simple things like Stella saw a rainbow. She's like, I'm going to write that in my gratitude journal. Simple things like seeing a rainbow or playing with your dog or anything.
Isn't that funny? That positive thing that you do that would normally just come and go, then stays in your mind because you want to remind yourself of it so as you can write it down later.
That's good. That's a great power of presence. Once again, you've got to be present in those moments where you spot that rainbow or that funny thing your dog did or your kid did. Presence, slowing down, being in the moment. doesn't
You could write a novel with some of the funny stuff your boys do.
Oh, mate, I tell you what, there's some weird things happen in my house. It's just saw the donuts this morning. Ate the donut all wrapped up and now it's gone.
Did you eat it?
No, it's here.
Oh, it's here.
I'm here to take a bite out of it so I can take it back home. But yeah, I've been pushing mindfulness for a long time because I used to use exercise as a way to escape problems. So if I was stressed, sweet, I'll just go to the gym, go for a run, and the problem would be gone. So you think, but what's left after exercise sometimes is cortisol, which is another stress sort of related hormone or chemical. I'm not sure how you describe cortisol.
It's a steroid.
It's a steroid, yeah. And so you've got that residual cortisol. You feel great for working out, but how do you break down the cortisol? That's where meditation and yoga and the nervous system coming back together, making the mind-body connection. What do they call it? Homeostasis, when the mind and body are working together.
Balanced.
Yeah, but it's all balanced. And the key to that, so my understanding is the breath is the bridge between the mind and the body. So it tells you what's going on. Like I mentioned earlier, if your breath's short and sharp, what's going on in my external environment to make me feel that way? Is it someone I don't like? Is it something that happened this morning that I'm still holding on to? And so it's good to come back to that observation of your breath, which is your nervous system expressing itself, and see what you can do to try and balance it out.
I think when we're in those points of those short breath moments, when you've got that stress, that's not a great mystery to us. We all know what it is that we're thinking of. And I'll catch myself all the time, and Fleur will say, why are you worrying about that now? And I'll say that to you too. Why are you worrying about that now? And it's almost like a conscious choice that you make to do that. I want to worry about that now. I want to stress about it now because I'm angry right now. And when this second lockdown happened, for 3 days, that's what I was like. I didn't want to feel good. I didn't want to feel happy. I just wanted to be miserable about it, and I wanted everyone around me to know. I wanted the guy at the supermarket to know.
Give him a bad day too.
But then all that's happened is that guy goes home and goes, that guy at work today was rude to me. So that's just a negative experience for him. So you're right. When you feel that, recognise it and understand that you are feeling a certain way, and it's up to you to change it.
Yeah,
really. And we've all got to have accountability on that side too. You know, it's one thing to say, well, here's ways that I can perhaps feel positive, but you've got to make a conscious choice that yes, I want to feel positive. And I think when you're addressing those things, how do you want to feel long term? Do you want to feel miserable, or do you want happiness? And if happiness is what you choose for your long term goal, then your short term actions need to reflect that too.
Yep.
And I think that's a really important point.
I think that an important part of that is accepting your feelings as well.
Yes.
I think sometimes
Absolutely.
we'll see anger or sadness or
And you're allowed to
emotions
feel
like
those
that
things.
as negative things and try and push them away.
Yeah.
And rather than do that, I think it's really important to acknowledge your feelings and accept them and go, okay, well, I'm really angry right now, but what you do with that is what matters.
Yeah.
You know, you express it in a healthy way, you talk about it with someone, you know, that you trust, and then you can move on from it. If you try and kind of push those feelings away, they're always sitting there simmering under the surface and you don't have a good outlet for it, then it's going to have a flow-on effect.
Absolutely.
So I think being able to express in a healthy way, you know, that you're feeling angry or you're feeling sad, or, you know, and then going, okay, well, you know, this is what I feel, this is what I'm going to do next, as you're saying, and then, you know, creating a positive change from being able to express what you're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think too, because I was thinking about what my take-home message of sitting here today would be, and I think the first thing that popped into my head this morning, and it's still now, is just having hope.
Yep.
You know, there's no point giving up and just accepting doom and gloom. There's always hope in every situation, and if you lose hope, then you might as well just give up. Do you know what I mean? And I think the first lockdown was the unknown, and nobody knew how long it was going to go on for. But this second one, I think we've all kind of being a little bit desensitized to it now. It's like, okay, we just have to get through and have hope. And that's my message, is just to don't give up. Just, it is going to end. Things will go back to what they were. And, you know, they talk about COVID is our new normal, well, whatever, but things will go back to the way they were at some stage. Whenever that'll be, will be. And we'll just, as Sifu always says, adapt and overcome.
Adapt and overcome. Yeah.
That's what we're doing, and that's what we're expressing to everybody else, and our whole community is doing. We're adapting and overcoming all the obstacles, and I know people are probably listening to this going, but, you know, I've lost my job and my relationship is bad, and I'm fighting with that person all the time. Taking a couple of deep breaths isn't going to fix anything. It's not going to fix anything. You know, your problems are your problems, and you still need to, you know, navigate your way through this and make decisions and sort out problems. But you can still do that in a mindful way of, yes, things are hard, and we're not dismissing that it is difficult, and people have got real struggle, and people have lost their jobs, and things are on the line. Like, for us, our business is on the line, you know, but we're not at each other's throats. You know, we're not treating each other badly. I'm not treating the people around me badly, even though, you know, that I am worried, but I can't change it. You know, it is what it is, and we're at the mercy of the government decisions, and that's what we have to do. But we're doing the best we can, and I appreciate every person here, you know, these people, but the people that are standing behind the camera. I'm grateful, and I hope everybody knows, and I'm expressing that I'm grateful to the people around, because that makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Letting the people around us know how much we appreciate them, the support of all of our members. I hope everybody knows, and I express that enough, and you express that enough, that we appreciate everybody and we're grateful. You know, that's what I'm grateful for, is the people in my life, regardless of what's going on outside. If you've got good people and you can treat them well and they treat you well, then I'm winning.
Absolutely.
And,
well said.
you know, that's it.
Well said.
That's my message.
I think what
fuzzy,
you're kind
man.
of saying is you can't control what's happening externally, but you can control what's happening
Happens
internally.
Yeah, how you respond.
Yeah.
Excellent points, guys. Thank you so much for coming on today. It was really, really good. I know I got a lot out of it too, and certainly some very, very strong words of wisdom. So, Kane, thank you so much for your input. Fleur, thank you so much, and of course, thank you again to Michelle. So next week, I'm not sure who we've got on. I might have to wrangle up a few of our old people. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to interview one of our best young up-and-coming fighters. Robbie Vagona.
Sit down, Roger.
Thank you so much, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Now, that being said, don't forget, log on to wearemindfulmovement.com.au.
Post a link, Kane.
I'll post
Yeah, actually, we will. We'll get Kane to post a link. Now, something that I want you all to do today is send a text message or send or make a phone call to somebody. Just ask them, how are you going? Is there anything that we can do to help?
All the simple words, welfare check.
Welfare check, nice and simple. Just check in on somebody, and be grateful if somebody checks in on you. Thanks very much.